Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cast episode 95. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
And I'm Sir Gill.
Now, we have been asked what's happening with both Rory and John. Now, we have said in the past, John is currently looking after a small child and so is finding, well, sleep and other things to be a luxury. So he's still struggling to find time to game and find time to podcast, which is perfectly understandable. Rory, however, is in a similar situation in that lockdown has made it so that he's struggling really to find time to game and record with us. So we haven't ejected Rory from the podcast, as someone might have suggested. We haven't kicked him off. We're hoping he can back to join us soon, but
we didn't get rid of him because he made us look bad. No, we haven't done that.
Tempting. I'm hoping he can rejoin us soon, but in the immediate future, I don't think we're going to be hearing from Rory, unfortunately.
Sad news.
It is indeed, yeah. Well, we'll have to make up for it. One of us is going to have to start being professional then, since Rory's not here.
Dibs, it's not me.
Shotgun not.
Unlucky, Steve.
Damn it.
Well, I have some news, boys. Big news.
Have you been to Dunelm?
Yes, actually. Yes, I have actually been to Dunelm.
Say, if you're broken in while it's closed during lockdown.
You can do click and collect. So we click and collected a mirror. That's all it was. It's not that exciting, but you know, in these terms of lockdown, you know, it's not bad because I've redecorated the downstairs lavvy, so it's actually quite nice now. So I put a mirror on the wall. That was good. More importantly, by the time this podcast has aired, my mattress should have turned up, and I will be sleeping pretty.
Mattress news is going to be a regular event on this podcast now, is it?
Well, after this one, no, because I'll have the new one, so that'll it. The problem will go away.
Well, mine hasn't turned up, so mine's still anticipated.
Oh, man, what's the lead time on it? Because this was like 5 weeks for mine. It's ridiculous.
I can actually organise delivery of mine, but because of lockdown, they won't build it, which I've paid for, and they won't take away the old one, which I want them to do because I can't fit a bed and a mattress in my car to take it down the tip.
You could ring the company that are doing mine, because the same company that brings my mattress is not going to take them away, but they offer like a partner service, so I've paid for that. They're turning up. You might want to just I can give you those details if you want.
They're saying that with lockdown, they're not picking these things up. So they just said, if you just want to wait until lockdown restrictions get eased, you can have it delivered straight away after that.
Sometime next year, then.
Sometime in 2023, I'll have a new bed delivered.
Hooray!
I feel like I need to go buy a mattress now just to join in.
You do? Join Mattress Club.
It's seriously, we do need a new mattress, but that's for another day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of this tabletop gaming podcast.
Sponsored by Slumber Quest.
Well, back to board gaming news. You know how John went balls deep on Tainted Grail, and I got twitchy fingers and things because I'd not had it, and everyone's going to say, "That's really good." I'm like, "Oh."
And then John stupidly decided to get it all shipped in one go.
That's right.
So
yes.
he could have done split shipping and managed to play it before Sammy arrived, but no, it turned up like last week.
Yes.
And he showed photographs with Sammy next to it, and the box you could quite literally put Sammy in the box. And he'd have room left.
It's enormous, yes. I decided to bite the bullet and found a very nice donor on the board game trading chat. Donor, well, vendor. Somebody who'd basically gone all in and done what I usually do and bought, everything. And I thought, I'll ask the question, but, given its popularity and the size of it and stuff, it's unlikely someone will have done this. But I got like 5 people go, yeah, I've got one if you want it. I'm like, okay. So, yes, I acquired a copy with everything, and it's very nice.
So how far have you got in it? Because I believe it's like a campaign game, isn't it?
It is a campaign game, yes. It's the lot I've got. Base game comes with one campaign, which I believe is something like 31 hours.
Right.
It's massive. Honestly, it's huge. The campaign book in it is about 1 inch thick, possibly more. And then the stretch goals box contains 2 more.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Jeez.
And then on top of that, there's another expansion called Red Death, I think it's called, which sounds very friendly and inviting. And that's got another one in it.
Blimey.
So there's a lot going on. But I've only played about 2.5, 3 hours of it so far. I've played, there's like a kind of an introductory game for it that teaches you all the basic rules, and this is how the game works, which is actually really good. So it's kind of like the tutorial level, really. It says, well, we're not going to spoil anything for you, so we've changed this and we've changed that, but when you play the real game, this is what the sort of thing will happen. And then you go into the real game, and I'm getting my arse handed to me. So I should be restarting that campaign very, very shortly.
Back to the checkpoint.
Yes, it is. I am reloading my checkpoint. There is actually a save system in it. It's actually pretty cool. But I won't say any more until I've played it properly and I can go to it in a bit more detail. But I'll obviously not spoil the story because it's a story-rich game. So if I say anything about the story, people will complain massively, and rightly so.
On a similar vein, I had a couple of goes of Bloodborne, which is the big Eric Lang Simon version of the FromSoft big video game. And I had a similar kind of situation to you. Well, partly I had a situation I was learning the game as I play it. That's how I teach myself now by playing. I can't just sit and read the rules. I've got to plonk everything on the table in front of me and poke around with the pieces and stuff. And so like the rulebook is like, it's quite a simple game. And the rulebook just has, it's just enough vagueness in it to make you go, am I doing this right? But it's not a bad rulebook, it's just slightly vague. And I got something horribly wrong, which made the game too easy, and I changed it to how it should be and went, oh, that's what the game's supposed to be like then.
Oh, my arse is on a silver platter now.
Yes.
The enemies are carving my buttocks like luncheon meat. Nice.
Which is not far off a description of Bloodborne, actually, yes.
Yes. No, actually, weirdly, it's the same in Tainted Grail. There's a couple of things that it mentions, you're like, what's that? And you spend 20 minutes going through the bloody rulebook and where's this particular term? And it'll say something like, if you are in a settlement, what's a settlement?
Yes.
Or if it has a keyword on it, okay, I know what a keyword is, but is there a list of keywords? No.
Is it in bold?
No. Does it give you an example? No. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. We have news. You've done a lot of trawling here, Tudor.
Well, it's been about 6 weeks since we last did any news, so I could have actually written a lot more than this. It's just this is what kind of struck me as being interesting for us to talk about.
And stuff that isn't 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
It's no longer news.
It's old.
It's been carved into stone statues now. It's that outdated.
Well, without further ado, the prehistoric news desk.
I'm going to start on the downer and hope we can get to the more positive stuff later. So Board and Dice have dropped Daniel Tascini from their product line for his racist comments on Facebook. Now, we are fans of Daniel Tascini's games. I'm not going to say fans of Daniel Tascini because that is a statement which needs reversing now. We are fans of his games. We do like Teotihuacan and Solkin and Trismegistus and things like that. We've mentioned them all plenty of times in the past. I think they're some of your favourite games, aren't they, Andy?
They are indeed, yes. Solkin and Teotihuacan, definitely. I really do enjoy them, so it is disappointing to hear this.
It's been difficult to piece together the sequence of events, but I think it all goes back to Phil Eklund, who's another game designer, who I always thought everyone knew was racist, but apparently this seems a revelation that came in recently. So Phil Eklund does games based on like human evolution and like prehistory, like rise of cavemen and stuff like that. And everyone says they're really, really good games, but apparently he has some funny ideas, was the phrase I'd heard in big inverted commas, funny ideas. And when I say funny ideas, it ends up that in the footnotes of one of his rulebook was something akin to something you'd expect to see in like a Nazi handbook about human evolution.
In a rulebook, bloody hell.
Yeah, in a rulebook, the footnote of a rulebook, yeah. So this kicked off a little bit, and Daniel Tascini started to support some of the things Phil Eklund had said, as I understand it. As I said, I've not been able to fill in all the gaps in this, but one thing he did say is that he doesn't see any problems with the racism as such and calls some of his friends by the N-word. I'm going to say the N-word because he used an Italian version of the word. A lot of the controversy has been over whether this word means the same thing in Italian as it does in English, to which some Italians have said, no, it means something different, and a lot of Italians have said, no, it means exactly the same thing.
So, okay.
So he offered an apology, but it was a little bit kind of not particularly heartfelt, though it seemed. It didn't seem like his back was in it. And shortly afterwards, Board and Dice basically said, we don't want him associated with us, and dropped him from his board game line. So
it was a very strong statement from Board and Dice. There was absolutely no room for interpretation there. That was like, no, you're out. You're on your arse. Off.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the speed at which it came out as well, because I was still catching up trying to work out what had happened, and all of a sudden, Board and Dice Twitter come up and it's like, whoa, they've been quick off the mark here.
Yeah, they did not mess around with that.
That's that. Let's draw a line under that, shall we? And hopefully we don't have to speak of this thing kind of shit again, but we will, no doubt. Speaking of Board and Dice, I've been sent more random shit in the post.
More random shit. Have you still got through the last random shit they sent you?
You may remember a while back, it was like a couple of years back, they sent me some magnetic tape with some tapes inside and a Walkman, an old Walkman, which is exactly the same ones I had in like the 90s. And on it was a tape with some recordings which were all about In Between. So it's like a little bit marketing thing for In Between. They then sent me a teddy bear with a computer circuit chip inside it, which was a little marketing stunt for their Escape Tales Awakening game. And that was like several board game YouTubers and bloggers and podcasts got sent a different chip, and we ought to put together and find the clue. People much cleverer than me worked that one out. I did not. This time I have been sent 3 magic beans.
What?
I have been sent 3 actual beans, proper beans, which have had kind of what looks like almost laser etched onto them, a smiley face on one side and a letter on the other. And they're actual proper beans. So with them was also like 3 little compost discs. And I've been growing them. So I've got 3 little plants. And one of them which is like 2 inches tall, the other 2 haven't quite broken the surface yet. So I've now got on my windowsill 3 little plants that Board and Dice have sent me.
Okay.
Now, I do have to be honest, I'm a bit behind where I should be on this because stupid Steve didn't actually look in the box at first. So this box arrived quite literally days before Christmas. And I kind of thought, do you know what? I'll look at this at Christmas because I know I'm going to get some stuff to do, some podcasting stuff at Christmas. I'll do a video after that. And then second lockdown hit and I was just, I can't be bothered. And it was only when some other people on the internet started posting pictures of these beans growing, and I went, what have I actually got? So I had a proper look in the box. And there's all these drawing instructions.
Good bell end.
No, have you actually worked out what it's for yet?
Apparently, right. So it also came with a copy of the new Escape Tales box game, which hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
Which is Escape Tales Children of Wyrmwood, which is the new one coming out. And apparently, I'm not allowed to open it until the plants have grown, because the plants have a puzzle or a clue that I have to solve when I open the game.
Assuming they grow and you don't kill them.
Assuming they grow and I don't kill them. Yes.
Fingers crossed then.
Fingers crossed. As I said, 1 out of 3. One's growing at the moment. The other 2 are the little roots have poked out, but they haven't got any green on them yet, so they're starting.
All right then. Right then, Percy Thrower. We'll keep an eye on this one.
A Titchmarsh and more like Percy Thrower.
Oh, what's his name? Him from Gardener's World.
Oh no, it's Charlie Dimmock, isn't it? That's who he is.
He's
even wearing one of those loose-fitting tops that Charlie Dimmock used to wear.
Yeah, and I think the cleavage is about the same size as well. No, it's what's his chops with the curly hair on Gardener's World. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World.
Monty Don.
Monty Don, that's him.
Monty
yes.
Don, there's 2 sleepy dogs.
That's it.
One sadly now.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
It used to be the Beechgrove Garden for me. Up in Aberdeen where all grows.
That's true, actually, yeah, because as soon as you plant something, it ends up at 45 degrees because of the wind and then shredded because of the sand.
This is just what that gets shown in the morning on BBC too. I've been watching it, and it's like, here we go, here's another rockery in Dundee.
It's like, you're in Scotland, where shall we base our gardening show? In Aberdeen. What is wrong with you? Oh,
Good
man.
grief. I've been up to the Isle of Lewis a couple of years ago with Laura, and literally there are no trees on that island. Now, I know it's the other side, but it's about as far north. And there are no trees on that island because there's too much wind. Anything that falls onto the grass just gets blown away. It ends up in the North Sea. Or the Atlantic.
But the stuff that does grow is f***ing solid. It'll be there
It's true,
for
actually,
millennia.
yes. The bus shelters look like bomb shelters.
That's just parts of Scotland, mate.
No, exactly. That's just the wind. Otherwise, they end up, if they're made from the normal stuff they make bus shelters of, they'll just be at 45 degrees.
Is everything up there made from that kind of asbestos concrete as well?
That's it, yes.
We use a lot of stone, put it that way.
It's true. Yeah, the black houses up there, they're kind of these really old cottages they used to make from literally black stone.
Mm.
And it's literally about 3 rocks thick. That's one wall. They're insane. They're really cool. But they're called black houses. And they're all rotten, literally just piles of stone. You kind of like a stone igloo, basically. You kind of crawl through the little door once you've built it, put some thatch on top. They're really nice. But by God, they're solid.
Well, speaking of desolate places.
That was a nice segue.
I thought it was. I thought it was quite smooth.
That's quite a nice segue, that, Steve. You get good at this. It's almost like you're a professional.
Hang on.
Told you one of us was going to do it. You two didn't step up to the plate. So Free League have announced a new starter set for Symbaroum, their RPG. Now, I've got like a bizarrely close relationship with this game because the designer of Symbaroum was one of the first people we interviewed actually on Polyhedron Collider as a blog. Like asking us if we wanted to review before it was Free League, because I can't remember the name of the company, but basically Free League merged with another company to form what is currently Free League. And they asked us to review it, and we weren't playing RPGs at the time. I was like, well, I could do an interview. And it was actually one of our most popular pages for absolute ages. So I'm really chuffed about this, because the idea of this is it's based on this dark woods called a Davakar, and you are basically mercenary troops that have been given charters to go out there and just get stuff.
Nice.
So it's this huge dark wood, and off you go. Have at it kind of thing.
Sweet.
So it's some very cool artwork to it. I've always liked the artwork. Now, there's the main city you're living in. It's got this thing of a house. There's a pub that's built up in a massive tree. There's this massive chimney spewing black smoke over everything, and it's got this really interesting kind of industry versus nature thing, because you're on the kind of side of industry, whereas nature is the forest itself, and it pulls things from Princess Mononoke, if you've ever watched that. Never watched Princess Mononoke?
Never heard of it.
No.
You've watched some of Miyazaki anime. You've watched
it's anime, no.
Spirited Away.
No.
Oh, I'd highly recommend Mononoke. It's on Netflix. Give it a watch.
Okay.
It is well worth a watch, that one.
I'm currently getting through Superstore at the moment. That's great.
Superstore.
Oh, it's
irrelevant.
It's lovely. It's perfect
It's irreverent.
for lockdown.
It's awesome. It's really funny.
It's that
it is.
simple chewing gum for the brain. It's beautiful.
It is. It's 20-minute episodes, so they're not too long. It's just mental. It's brilliant. It's really good.
For the very same reason that I've just finished watching Star Trek Below Decks.
Yep.
I really loved that.
Yeah. Laura and I started too, but I got halfway through the first episode and went, no!
Really? I thought you'd like it, because it's taking the piss out of Star Trek, but actually reveres it more than some of the other Star Trek does.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to give it another go, but I wasn't. I find it a bit dull, actually.
I had mixed feelings about it.
Better than Discovery, though. But then again, that's not hard.
The black screen when the TV switched off is better than Discovery. You can watch that for 45 minutes and you're better off.
The characterization's better as well.
It's less wooden.
It's true. Oh, God, yes. Discovery was just a...
Speaking of woods...
Good grief, Judy, you're on form here.
There's a new expansion coming for Root.
Another one!
Indeed. There's some badges in this one as well.
Hurrah!
We need to be a bit careful here. It's going to make it look like we're setting these up for you through our entire competence rather than just luck. Right? That's
No,
two
I'm
segues
just
you got
on the
away
ball
with.
at the moment. That's it. It's all going to fall down in a minute, Sid.
It's that glass of wine. It's put him right in the zone.
I'm going to end up with something random like pineapple and see how you segue that into the next section. Give you a challenge.
Yes, the badgers are coming to Root, which is good news, everyone. Good news. Yes, the Warlord, the Seekers, and a whole host of might. So the Marauders. Yes, so they've done the Underworld, they've done the River Folk, they haven't done the Sky yet. There's a terrain they've not.
That's the next one, then, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That's about the only thing they could do, I think, next. But yeah, this kind of means I'm going to have to do this now, doesn't it? Because I've got all the others. I'm committed now. I don't get a choice. But I have to say, I really do like Root. It's impossible to teach. Not because it's a particularly complicated or hard game, other than the fact that the rulebook's dog shit on a crusty roll, but because it's so asymmetric, like every faction is just completely different. There's like about 6 basic rules that apply to everybody about, moving people from one clearing to another, and even then, bloody Vagabond's different. So, there's literally about 3 or 4 rules that apply to everybody. Beyond that, you have to follow your little character board. And of course, if you're teaching 4 or 5 other people how to play Root, you've got to spend 20 minutes explaining the rules for that particular faction to that one person while everyone sits around smoking and just not paying attention at all. But the further problem is that in order to play the game effectively, everyone needs to know all the other factions so they can understand what they do and why they're doing it. It's a bastard to teach, but it is a beautifully good game.
I do want to jump on the Steam version at some point, because I think that's the way to learn it and properly get to play it, so that when you can play it in real life, you'll know what's going on.
You say that. Because I've got the Steam version, and it is a very good implementation of it. But I think there's a lot hidden behind under the hood in the video game version, because you don't have a player board that tells you do this, do this, do this, do this, and pick from one of these. It's just kind of, you need to kind of know the game a bit. It does teach you through a tutorial for each of the factions, so you kind of get to know how they work a bit. But I think unless you are familiar with the game already, it would be quite a learning curve. But it is a very good implementation of it, and you should definitely try it.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have a decent segue here. Oh, yeah, you haven't set one up for me.
Well, I don't know. Forests and things have flowers.
Possibly. Anyway.
Can Steve just get back onto it? You're shit, Andy.
I was trying to set him up, but obviously that's failed.
You were doing better when you weren't trying.
I know. I've dropped that pitch right at my feet, haven't I, really?
Yeah. So Isaac Vega, who you may know as working on several games for Plaid Hat Games, such as our very much favourite Dead of Winter.
Yes.
And Lindsay Rode, who has worked on some RPGs, have set up a new gaming studio called Rose Gauntlet. Now, this announcement on its own was like, kind of, oh, that looks interesting. And they announced 6 games, and there are 9 in development already.
Bloody Nora, they've not been hanging around, have they?
No. They've got a little thing on their website about when they're all coming out. We don't know much about the games at the moment because they were just like basic descriptions and a little bit of artwork. So we've got Keystone North America, Gone to Gaia, Life After Dungeon. And then they've got a little chart on their website about like what stage everything's in, and like only the first 3 are named, and everything else is on code names, so you don't know what it is. But they're not wasting any time. They've got, as I said, they've got a good plethora of games out there, or about to become out there. So it'll be interesting to see what turns up.
The artwork is incredible.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? It's absolutely
They haven't
gorgeous.
wasted time or money on an artist, have they?
No, indeed. My goodness, they're going to be very pretty games.
Very diverse set of artwork as well. You've got, what are those, meerkats or something? Prairie dogs? Prairie dogs, I'm going to go with.
They are prairie dogs, yes. Yeah. The sort of little sort of gerbil-like thing. Not gerbil.
And
hamster,
then you
type
go
affair.
to something with
guinea pigs,
tentacles and creepy beastie things in the background. It does look gorgeous. It really does, some of this stuff.
Very, very pretty. Right, well, definitely we shall be keeping an eye on those.
Shall indeed.
Have they said when anything's coming out in the near future? Or is this still all of its TBD?
So they reckon that Keystone North America will be out Q2 2022.
Okay, so we've got another year and a bit.
year and a bit left. And then Gone to Gaia will be sometime in 2022, and everything else is 2023 and onwards.
Okay. Well, it's nice they've got a good pipeline.
Mm.
That's kind of FFG levels of for planning, isn't it? Because you can do the same on an FFG site, like this is what's coming up. Although they don't give you a timeline on there. It's just like, this will be printed at some point.
Who knows?
Exactly,
no one
yes.
knows.
Ooh! There's no segue for this either, really, is there?
No, not really.
No,
Roses are red.
Roses are red, there you go, yes. Violets are blue. I know a very rude version of this, and I'm not going to say it. That's not the song, just...
It's quite appropriate for the pre-Valentine's episode, really, that you've gone down that
That's true. Stonemaier are releasing another game. Although we don't know when yet. It's in the works. And it's called Red Rising. Not Red Rising Hood. They've missed a trick there. And it is based, actually, on the series of novels, none of which I am familiar with. But there are a series of... it's another dystopian one, actually. So the second-ish one based on a dystopia. So the first one was Euphoria, way back in the day. And this is the futuristic universe of Red Rising, based on the book series by Pierce Brown, whoever he is. But this seems to be a slight departure, actually, I would argue, from this typical sort of Stonemaier core, because they usually have big boards and lots of colourful playing pieces and stuff. But this is a much simpler looking game. A few decks of cards, and a few other bits and bobs as well.
Is the first game they've done based on like a license or something that isn't
in
Jamie
so.
Stegmaier's head?
Yeah, because looking at some of the comments earlier today, a few people have asked Jamie, have you done this, have you done that? And he said, well, we could do, but because it's a licensed product, we didn't want to go too far away from the sort of the core materials. So, yes, it looks like they're sticking to the material quite closely on this one. I'm not going to lie. I'm not filled with excitement, but that's not to do with this game, really. It's more to do with the recent games that have not floated our boat.
No, after Tapestry and Pendulum, my kind of excitement has been tempered somewhat.
Yes. But it's a deck builder, is it not? Combo deck building type game.
Yes, apparently so, yeah.
Which I would say I'm not usually a fan of, but that's a complete lie. Because all the ones I've done that have had combo building and deck building in, I've actually really quite liked. So you never know. This might be quite good fun. We shall have to see. It'll be nice to get a play. What we're going to do this time, I think, is play it before we commit money.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how in the current climate.
It might end up on Tabletopia or
that is a
Tabletop Simulator.
Yes, a lot of them seem to. So maybe we can do it that way. Well, so keep an eye on that. So that's Red Rising from Stonemaier. Again, not due out yet, although pre-orders are apparently beginning in March. Okay. So based on that, I would wager they're probably going to be out in either Q3 or Q4.
All right.
I would guess. In time for Christmas. This sneaky devil, Mr. Stegmaier, is quite good at his marketing, so I'm guessing he's hitting the Christmas rush, but we shall see.
In other news, UK Games Expo have brought forward the dates for the 2021 show. It has now been moved to Friday 30th of July until Sunday the 1st of August.
We can go for my birthday.
I must admit, I want to be able to go to this, but I'm still thinking July and August seems keen. I don't know about anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's a bit optimistic, given that they're saying in the news at the moment that I think they're expecting everybody over 50 to have had their first of 2 inoculations by, I think it's the end of March, which leaves, I'd say statistically, at least half the population, many of whom will actually want to go to the KGE, uninoculated. So there's still a bit of a window after that, but I have to say I'm not holding my breath on this one. It'd be really good to be able to go, but there is a big stinky but there.
Yeah. But if we do go, we're dragging you along this year, Sid.
Yes.
That sounds good. I'll come along. Be a nice day
get
out.
Involved in the shenanigans.
Oh, yes.
Just sneaking into the halls to get a coffee.
Yes.
I,
And experiencing absolute brain drain on the Sunday and not being able to keep your eyes open by 8 o'clock at night.
no, it sounds like good fun. I really hope it goes ahead, to be honest. I think you're right to err some caution, but, you know, we need hope. We all need hope at the time like this, and that puts at least something on the calendar that, you know, it's a line in the sand. Isn't it? Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the final thing to add, which I've just put in, because I suddenly remembered about it,
And misspelled.
is Portal... Just typed it quick, Andy. Shut up. Portal announced a whole bunch of games. They did like a little like webinar kind of thing where they introduced several games, one of which was a spy game which sounded interesting. But the one that really caught my eye is something called Dune House Secrets. So it's another Dune tie-in game. Ooh. So we got the Dune board game and the Dune RPG coming from Odysseus. This is based on their detective crime games.
Ooh.
Which I know me and you have played, Andy. I don't think we've actually discussed it on the podcast.
We haven't, because it's really hard to discuss it without giving it all away. Actually, no, did we? Maybe we did one because we played it at your house with a couple of your friends.
Yes.
And we were shit.
Yeah, we did bad. In fact, we did so bad, we could probably redo that investigation and still not get any better.
Something any worse.
True. Yes, true. So this is apparently a Dune-themed game based on the same system. So the system is you will be having clues and you'll have a problem to solve, and everyone should really be given a role. So the version of detective I've got is the kind of like standalone version, which actually says everyone has this one role. So one person has to have a laptop or a tablet, and will need to go onto the internet and look at a particular database which gives you information. And then other players will have cards they've got to read, which basically, it's like a bit like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. Do you do A or do you do B? But you can use the computer and other bits of information to try and narrow down your decisions. So simple mind things might be just look up some information. Other things might be if you collect a fingerprint, you will have a code. You can enter that code into the computer for the fingerprint. It'll tell you whether you've got a match on your database or anything like that, or whether you need more information and things like that.
Or in our case, give you more options of which we will always choose the wrong one.
Yeah, we didn't do very well at that at all, did we?
No, we did not. No.
The other thing which is really quite cool is they do pull in information, like real world information. So sometimes things you know in real life will help you actually solve the crime and give you an idea as to what's supposed to happen. Ooh. And the original detective actually has, if you go to the Wikipedia page of some of the places where events are said to have happened, there's clues in there of how to solve the crime.
Oh, that's cool.
Ooh,
which is really quite cool.
What you could do, you could be really mean to other gamers and just edit the Wikipedia page just to screw them over. But only a callous, hard-nosed individual would do such a thing.
It's when you look at the edits and it says Andy Lewis, last person to edit this page.
Mandy Spewis, that would be it. I'd use my pen name.
Mandy Spewis.
That does sound good, though. We do like Dune and we do like Detective.
Mm. Does sound very interesting.
Do you know if it's affiliated with any of the particular houses, or is it just set in randomly in the universe and you're kind of like some random blue-eyed gumshoe?
In all honesty, I haven't got the faintest clue because at the moment we just know the name.
Okay.
It's based on Detective. Basically, they've done like a picture of Ignacy Trzewiczek standing in front of the logo.
There's a game on here that all three of us have played.
That's a rare occurrence, isn't it?
A board game.
I played
a board game we've all played, although admittedly not in person, obviously. This was online and electronic.
And I enjoyed it. It was good fun.
Good man. We are talking, of course, obviously, about The Architects of the West Kingdom, which I think Steve and I have mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we've actually talked about it before. I can't remember. I've slept since then. But yes, we played on one of either Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator. I forget which. Probably Tabletopia.
It's Tabletopia, I think.
Yeah. Architects of the West Kingdom by Stem Phillips from Garphill Games, which we like very much.
Yes. So for those who don't know, this is a worker placement game in which you are attempting to build a cathedral or build other buildings. Those are your main sources of victory points.
Clues in the name.
And what is the clever thing, TM, about this game is the way you place workers is you've got a massive pool of workers and you place one at a time, and the resources you get depend on the amount of workers you have put in that place. So, for instance, if you go to the forest, you get 1 wood. Second time you go there, you've got 2 workers there, so you get 2 wood, and so on and so forth. And things keep expanding like that. However, you can capture your opponent's workers and ransom them off for money.
Basically, sell them into servitude and reap the benefits.
Basically, dick moves aplenty.
Underhanded tactics, but they are entertaining. Yes. I'm going to go here and take all of these miniatures, at which point swearing ensues.
And you have to do it because there's no other way of bringing your workers back. So at some point you have to go and use this action yourself to release your own workers before someone else goes and sees, like, you've got, 6 workers in the forest, and everyone goes, that's a juicy amount of workers I can grab in one go. So there's this little risk-reward balance between, getting loads of resources with one action or leaving this tempting pool of your workers just sitting there unguarded, ready to be sold off into servitude.
Yes, there's a lovely push your luck element.
But
it's more of a kind of a multiple action rather than multiple reward, because obviously some of the spaces don't give you a resource. They'll let you do an action, like take a card or build a building or whatever. So if you have more than one worker there, you can do that action more than once. Yes,
and saying it's a worker placement and grabbing resources is an oversimplification, because you've also got cards which represent the architects, the actual things you need to build. So you need to recruit these things and they all give you bonuses. And then the buildings yourself can give you bonuses and victory conditions. And then there's this real, almost complicated system where you've got this, and it appears in all the West Kingdom games, as a morality track where you can either be naughty or nice. And basically, if you're nice, you can build the cathedral, but you've got to pay all your taxes. Where if you're naughty, you can go to the black market and you can avoid paying some of the taxes, so things are cheaper for you. But you can't do some of the things that would get you victory points.
It's a very clever system.
And balancing that out for the game is always quite interesting.
It was interesting the way we played. We all 3 of us made a beeline for the black market really early in the game. Completely nailed it about 4 times, and it just got lifted. So the tower was just full of our workers. So then we spent the rest of the game gradually taking them out again, making sure that we just had 1 fewer of our workers in there, so that we didn't get the debts.
Yeah, we did pick up on the be a bastard mechanic pretty well, I thought.
It was very good. Yeah, it is. Considering it's a worker placement game, but it's surprisingly simple, very easy to teach, very easy to learn, and it's over quite quickly. Actually, I have always found whenever I've played it, there's not quite enough game there.
Do you know what? I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the kind of placement of it, and the fact that you had the element of being able to kind of do your pal over. I quite enjoyed that, and I think somewhere halfway through, Alora came in and said, "You guys are really bastards to each other compared to when I've played it with Andy," which I thought, actually, yeah, that does sum us up quite nicely. No, I got into it really quite easily, You guys gave me, 10, 15 minutes to kind of walk me through a couple of rounds of it, I think we did, and it was quite straightforward to pick up and play.
Yeah, then we pulled the stops out and pumped you.
Yeah, well, I don't think I got a severe pumping. I mean, I did.
You did not, because Steve lost, hilariously.
Yeah. No, there's a couple of mechanics that, now that I've played it once, I think I'd do differently. But I think that was just learning. You got to play it a few times. You got to get a feel around it and get used to the different ways of. There's quite a lot to take in some ways, but in some ways, if you were just taking it at face value, you could sit down. You could have 2 or 3 hours of good fun on it, and you're no worse off.
Yeah, no, it's the West Kingdom games, because this is the first in the trilogy of the 3 games, because there's Architects, Paladins, and then Viscounts, and they're all really solid games. They've all got a consistent iconography. All the iconography is because the first sort of trilogy before this was the North Sea trilogy. So there were sort of explorers, Viking, raiders, and some other one. So it looks like he's going around the sort of points of the compass. And they all use a sort of consistent iconography. So if you've played one of these games, you'll be able to play all of the others. There's a slight tweak every now and again, they introduce one sort of symbol every now and again, but they're always, much of a muchness. So it's quite good, the number of times that you can actually take essentially a set of artwork and iconography and just twist it into, so far, 6 games.
Mm. Well, I think the thing I liked about it was there was so many different ways you could play. And I think as a learner, that's the thing I found a little bit overwhelming is, you had the cathedral route, the being a right bastard route, and becoming really bad, I guess, and getting the victory points from the fact that you could get things off the black market for cheapness. And part of what I was trying to learn was kind of what's the best way for me to play. Should I go for the cathedral route and be good? And that kind of feels like the easiest way to play the game, maybe, or the least complicated at least. But also kind of the one that might be a bit. I guess you've got to get a lot of things going in your favor, which is what I found quite difficult with it. But yeah, overall though, I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I was impressed with the format we played it on as well. It felt quite comfortable, quite an easy way to play the game, and there was nothing tidy up at the end. Just hit the big cross and off we went.
That's true. Actually, it's one advantage. Like, if you tried putting something like Eclipse or Twilight Imperium away, that's an hour and a half job just in itself. Whereas online, click, problem's gone away.
Yeah, and I think we said before it was good because it allowed us to dip in very quickly. It was a random shout about lunchtime saying let's have a game, and within an hour or so we'd sorted our lives out, sat down, had a game, and then gone back to being adults again. So
well, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, okay,
yeah.
Putting the bins out, that
pretending.
Kind of thing.
We went back to pretending to be adults again.
Yeah. Running some kind of circus that we call a household. Yeah.
So I played this over Christmas, and I actually tried the new Tome Saga expansion. Admittedly, I didn't try all of it. We kind of ran out of steam about halfway through Paladins. So Tome Saga is a way of playing all 3 games one after each other.
Right.
And so the basic results of one game affect the next. So you'll play Architects, then you'll play Paladins, and you'll play Viscounts. And what it does is it gives you 2 things you can do. It gives you almost like achievements, like Xbox achievements kind of thing, where if you get them, you get the card, which gives you some points. And then to get the most points, however, you have to thrash your opponent. And I say thrash it because basically what it says is it gives you points for winning, which are a couple of points, but then says basically you have to beat your opponent by 20 points or 10 points. So I can't remember the exact amount, but you basically have to thrash your opponent in order to get ahead. If you don't, then you're both on this kind of really interesting level pegging. So it gives you a couple of advantages. And these achievements give you an advantage in your next game.
Right.
So rather than just being, do this first, you get 5 points, campaign points, it'll also say, and your such and such miniatures, such and such actions will do this next game as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
And there's a few extra ones in there, so you don't have to play with the same ones every single game. So you can mix them, you can shuffle them up, put 3 out random. I think it's 6 of these objectives, so you get 3 random ones. So you play with half of them each game, kind of thing. So you'll see them after a few of these campaigns, but it means they're going to be subtly different every time you play.
Okay, that's interesting because I've got Tome Saga, but Laura and I haven't actually started it yet. We keep meaning to, but it's one of those we should play it, but we haven't yet. But that'll be interesting if you get the sort of the thrashing bit going on, because Architects were about the same as each other. There's only like a couple of points in it whenever we play, one way or the other. Paladins, I always spank her at it. And by about 30 points, like you've said. Because for some reason she just can't get her head around it. I don't know why, because she's usually pretty good at that kind of thing. But in Viscounts, it's the other way round. Every time we've played Viscounts, I've been the receiving of a serious beating. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects the overall campaign. But whilst on the subject, I have played, or rather Laura and I have played, The Age of Artisans, which is the expansion to Architects of the West Kingdom. Which it adds not a huge amount to the game, obviously being an expansion, but it adds Artisans, again, clues in the name. It also adds a 6th player. Now, I haven't played it with 6, so I can't comment on how well that works, but Artisans bit of the game adds the possibility to essentially add adornments to any buildings you build. So you can sort of basically, paint the front gold, or add a bunch of fairy lights, or give it a nice sexy sign or something. And that basically gives you additional ways to score points at the end of the game. Or you can kind of enhance your not your workers, the people cards you get that allow you to
art builders and architects.
Yeah, that's it. Like yeah. The kind of the people in the town that help you build, and they give you like a paintbrush or a hammer or whatever that you need to build the buildings. What you can do is essentially enhance their abilities. So whenever you do an action based on what they give you, they'll give you an additional bonus. So you can kind of enhance one or both of the other. So it's and then you also get an artisan meeple, so an extra sort of meeple, which is kind of like the mega meeple that you get in viticulture. So whenever you go somewhere, you can basically do two things rather than one. But you can only you can't move them around. You have to basically take them back, like when you do this sort of the capture maneuver. So it's a fairly straightforward expansion, but I really like it. I think it's a nice twist, and it adds just a little bit more possibility and a couple of extra ways of scoring. So definitely worth buying, and you need to get that, Steve.
Yeah.
After your administrative oversight.
Yeah, I forgot to add it in the pledge manager, and I fully intended to buy it. And then when I opened the package, when Tome Saga had arrived, and went, "Where's my expansion gone? Well, they haven't sent this." And then double checked my pledge manager and found out I'd forgotten to order it.
Oops.
Of me.
Mm-hmm. Schoolboy. Although, yeah, we've all been there.
Hey, at least I haven't done what you've done and ordered the same expansion twice.
That's true. Yes, I did. In fact, I did both things in the previous Root campaign. I forgot to order the Clockwork expansion and also ordered a different bit twice. So if anyone wants all of the little resin additional markers and additional pack of cards, there's one going. Pristine, Nick. So yeah, that was wholly unsuccessful campaign from my part. Oh well, never mind.
Oh dear. So on the RPG front, we have managed to carry on playing some games. We've got an ongoing game of Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, which is a D&D campaign from Arcane Worlds and Modiphius. But we're also playing some Forbidden Lands, which is a fantasy RPG from Free League, which is quite easy for us to jump into because it uses more or less exactly the same dice system as Alien, but produces quite a different feeling game.
Well, yes, different feeling, but equally as awesome.
And just as lethal.
Just as brutal.
Yes.
Yeah, just as brutal.
Actually, I'd say this is more brutal because what happened, as I'll just explain to you to the listeners, originally I was running the game, Sid and Andy and a couple of people were joining in, but we ended up with more people wanting to play than I could really run. The game is designed for 3 to 5 players and 1 GM. So me and Andy have split. So I'm GMing one group now and Andy's GMing another. And I think between the 8 players we've got 1 lost nose, 2 lost hands, 1 shattered elbow.
A missing limb.
Any more? We've got 2 missing hands, so we've got 2 missing limbs in my group. Have you got any more?
Oh, yeah, I think bits? one of us has lost a toe or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Ben's lost his toe. No, his finger.
Oh, his finger. He
said, no, Ben, you can't use you can't use 200 weapons anymore. He says, I don't care. I've got a shattered elbow, so it doesn't matter. Okay, fine. He seems to be permanently recovering some kind of galloping knob rot.
Don't worry, we've taken him around the back of the bike sheds nearly already in the next session, so he's going to get put out of his misery pretty soon.
The last session went well and then went downhill very quickly when curiosity got the better of him.
Let's just say some poor choices may have been made. Some decisions which some players regretted may have been undertaken.
You know? Indeed, yes, the lure of treasure got the better of you.
There might have been a magpie moment. I mean, I'm not going to ruin the game for anyone.
No, we can't ruin the plot because we are playing. So, Steve, you're doing Spire of Quetzal?
So we just finished the Spire of Quetzal, okay. Yeah. So just to explain what the game is it's a fantasy RPG and it follows a lot of the old Tolkien-esque kind of tropes. You've got your elves, you've got your dwarves, you've got your half-elves, halflings, orcs, that kind of thing. It's got its own kind of mythology, as most of these things do. There's a whole, just several pages in one of the rule books about the whole history of the Ravenlands. And it's all about this thing called the Ravenlands, which I said, the Forbidden Lands. It's supposed to be a largely unexplored area which has been cut off from civilization for a couple of 100 years. So the reason for this being cut off is lifted and everyone can go around and explore. So you've got a map of this entire region, but it's unpopulated. There's loads of little pictures, things on there, dungeons and towns and villages and castles. But what they are is completely up to you as the GM. You've got you basically put whatever you want in there, and it gives you a couple of example ones in the main rulebook of adventure sites and villages you can throw in. And then there is a campaign book called The Raven's Purge, which basically kind of knits all this together. And then there's a couple of add-on books which are just completely random, and they're random adventure sites, as it calls them. They're different to an adventure that you get in D&D because there's no plot. They're kind of like there's something for you to explore, and things don't happen if the players don't interact, if that makes sense. I don't think I've explained that very well, but what it means is
it's a very player-driven.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for,
yes,
Andy.
It's a very player-driven campaign. So yes, there's no, unless you really wanted to build one, there's no real plot thread through a lot of it. Each individual adventure site is kind of its own sort of mini story, so it can evolve how the players want. I mean, you can weave a narrative through all of them, which is what I think you and I are trying to do.
And that's what Raven's Purge does. Raven's Purge has a narrative which joins a lot of things together, but it's almost like a narrative of what has been, not what's going to happen. So if you think of like a D&D campaign, we've mentioned Storm King's Thunder in the past, and there's big campaign books. They have a set plan of what is going to happen. Raven's Purge is very much a case of this is what's happened. Throw the players at it. See what happens.
Yes.
But, I mean, that's the only way it can be, though, because this system is so deadly that, if you're not going to start the game, right? You're not going to start your campaign with the same character you finish it with. So you make your peace with that. And therefore...
I did.
Well, yeah, you did. How many sessions did you do, Andy? 2?
4.
1? Right?
No, about 4 or 5.
I reckon by the end of this, we'll be able to do lifespans of all our characters, right? And there won't be more than 2 to 4 sessions for each character.
Probably fair.
and that is what I think that's what I love about it. It's that refreshingness. It's you can try and keep your character alive for ages and ages and ages, but you'll be bored. Why did I do what I did last session? Because it felt right. That's what I wanted to do, and it needs to move at that pace. The game is quick.
Well, you are playing a Tomb Raider.
Well, no. Any relation to any Tomb Raider, past or present, is purely coincidental.
Sorry, yes. Sorry. Cara Loft, yes.
I may have used her as a muse. But like I say, any
inspired by games made by Core
that's
Design.
Right, inspired by.
Indeed, yes. No, it is very, very good. The game's kind of almost split into 2 bits, though, because there's the adventure site, which is, D&D is always the nice, sort of line in the sand that everyone uses as a reference. But it's nothing like D&D. But in terms of the adventure site, where you go around exploring rooms and potentially finding monsters that will murder you horribly, that's very familiar. Obviously, the system is very different, and there's a lot more caution involved when you're a player, because it can be like in Alien. You can turn a corner and you will get mullered by some beastie there. So there's always this caution, and there is genuinely a real sense of threat and dread, which is something that we've talked about before. That I think the reason that these Mutant Year Zero games come alive is that there is this constant feeling of threat and terror and dread around the party that really does keep you on your toes. But then there's the other side of this of the game, which isn't in Alien at all, is the kind of the exploration and the kind of the party acting as a whole to try and basically stay alive.
Yeah, it's a survival element, isn't it? I mean, that is different, because in D&D you get from A to B and you might drive in a wagon car and get attacked by goblins halfway, but you're not fighting for your food. You know, you're not kind of having to live and day by day, make sure you sleep, make sure you don't freeze to death, make sure you build a camp. And all that is quite different to a point where I think some of us have struggled with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was getting to. I think it's taken us quite a while to get to grips with that, because I think it's fair to say we all thought, even I think Steve would fair to say you thought it was a bit chuggy to start with as we were learning the system.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the thing we got wrong was we didn't allocate roles. And I think when we had the team of 8 or 7 or whatever it was, we couldn't really allocate roles. I reckon now we're down to a four-man band. We can one person's always going to be looking for food, one person's going to be out watching, one of them's building camp, one of them sleeping. We kind of falling into a routine, and we're getting better at that to the point where I think it's becoming slicker.
I agree. Yeah, you've got used, because as a party, you guys definitely know what you need to do, where you need to go, and what you need. I mean, it went wrong horribly in the last session because Ben was by a river and still couldn't find water. Chris went into a forest full of food, came back with a single carrot.
And a mighty fine carrot it was that he scoffed himself. The rest of us off. But, he was all right.
Everybody else, actually, the way the resources tracked in this, and this is one of the beautiful things, it's very similar to Alien in the sense with the way that ammo works as well. There's a lot of things that aren't tracked explicitly. So you have essentially a set of dice that represent, say, your arrows or your food or your water. And you just roll a particular die. So it starts off as a D12 and you've got tons of it. And if you roll a 1, it drops down a die level. So you go from a 12 to a 10 to an 8 to a 6. And if you fail on your 6, you run out of stuff. Now, different levels of different resources require different levels of investment. But yeah, on that particular excursion, 3 of you ran out of water, 1 of you ran out of food. And you found a carrot. It's brilliant. And which really changes the game, because in D&D you have a rest, you get all your stuff back, and there's pretty much no one, unless you fall asleep in a castle full of goblins and they attack you halfway through, you're pretty much guaranteed to get all of that stuff back. You'll get all your spells, you'll get all your resources, you'll get all your hit points. In Forbidden Lands, not so much. So if you don't get any food, you go hungry, and that affects your endurance and your hit points. If you don't find somewhere comfy to sleep, you get chilly, which means you suffer again, and you get cold, which means once a day or more often you'll start rolling, and then there's more pressure put upon you. And then, of course, next time you go hunting, you have to find twice as much because you need to catch up, get rid of your hunger, and find food for the next day. And it's one bad day of that foraging can really change what the party does, why the party does it, and even where they go. It's all of a sudden, Jesus Christ, we can't go in there. We've got nothing.
It's wondrous. It is an absolute joy to behold. I love it because there's consequences. There's consequences to your actions. If you f up on a day 1, like you say, day 2's harder, and then it's harder to get back on your feet. So day 3's even harder because day 2's probably gone wrong because you've lost half your dice because you're tired.
Yes, exactly. It's brilliant.
How the f*** do you come back from that? And that's when you have to get creative. That's when we have to start getting imaginative. Now we've got to limp ourselves from where we are to somewhere where we can get some bonuses on our foraging maybe, or we need to get to a town and we need to get into an inn. I mean, we are so incompetent as characters. We don't even know how to cook food. We can build a camp, make a fire, but we can't cook food because we're stupid. Right? Mm-hmm. So we've got to now find somebody to teach us how to cook food so we've got half a chance of surviving. But the fact we can't kill anything yet maybe doesn't really matter. But I don't know, I love it. I love our characters being so crap, and we've started with nothing. I've got a bow and we've had to pick up everything else as we went along. Broadswords, there's no armor. We didn't start with any armor.
I did actually love that. You went into a room, there was a room full of skeletons, all wearing like armor and shields and swords, and everyone went, "Whoa, this is Christmas!" Yeah. Everyone's going around picking up, what armor can I find here? Can I get any chainmail? Yeah, you can get some chainmail. I've got some chainmail.
And it's rusty, battered old, but it's crappy stuff. It's got holes in it. It's got some rust off it. But it was magnificent because we had nothing as characters. We started with absolutely nothing other than more or less the clothes on our back and maybe a weapon of some basic kind.
Yeah, a small knife or something. Yeah, it is really the opposite end of the higher fantasy games where, you get armor and kit and a backpack full of stuff right from day one, and you kind of spoiled. This you really are scrabbling around for even a few meager pieces of silver. You get a single gold coin in this game and you are rich. It's mental. It's insane. It's like, oh my God, I can buy half the town.
It is good. But I am concerned a little bit because I'm not sure how we're going to feel when we do lose our first characters, because we're going to start again. So we're going to be back down to basics. So there's going to have to be an interesting development of how we play. And I think we're playing it wrong.
Really?
I do think we're too... I think we're too gung-ho. Because we're so used to games where you're protected a little bit from yourself.
Yeah,
Like in Alien, you said it in Alien, if you stand in front of an alien and you shoot an alien in the face and it's in your face, you're going to get covered in acid. It's going to hurt you. Why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I'm stupid and I'm not thinking ahead as to what weapon I use when I'm 3 feet away from an alien. And that's what I did.
Very thematic.
That's what I did. That's why I did what I did in that tomb.
See, I find in the other group, the group I'm running, are being the opposite. They're being super cautious because they've realised how deadly it is. And I'm purposely making it so it doesn't always work out for them. But it does make it quite interesting because, as you said earlier, every action has a consequence in this game. So there's like one bit when they went... I don't want to say what happened because it's really, really weird, but let's say they went into a room and they found out that someone was trying to push them off the edge of like a cliff in the room. So they went, oh, this is really bad. We're going to get our asses kicked. So tried to run back, but they'd snuck past someone to get through the door. They got into that room. So then the things they'd snuck past were there waiting for them. And it's like, well, now we've got to decide which fight we're going to fight in.
Excellent.
And then it came to the final kind of boss of this adventure, and they got really lucky. So they'd made some serious sacrifices. And I will spoil this a little bit. There's one character in it, I'm not going to say who or what, which basically says, you people aren't good, you're just plunderers. And everyone goes, no, we're good people. Prove it. Drink this poison. And I said, what? Are you saying if we're good, the poison won't kill us? No, the poison will still kill you. It's just I know you've got good intentions if you drink the poison. On fair dues, our players, Derek, went, all right, then, chugged the poison. What? And I'm not kidding, he was one dice roll away from death.
Ballsy.
He almost died.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, his character almost died. And it was like, wow, okay, no, you've been ballsy, but you've also realised the consequences of your action and realised you're screwed about this person's help.
And this is what I said to you. It's a reward, isn't it? It's risk versus reward. So, yeah, I might die for some of my stupidity actions. On the other hand, I might be wadded.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Because in this particular circumstance, my party is... they're basically going through a crypt. And this crypt, because we've essentially dubbed our two teams the treasure hunters and the missing kin team. So Steve's team is the missing kin, so they're looking for people who are of interest to their party. And essentially the team I'm managing are on the rob.
Yep.
And they've found this crypt, which is absolutely perfect for Kara. Other raiders are available. And they've got to this point in the crypt where they found a room, a very ominous looking room. They explored around, danced around the point thing, and I sort of explained to them what was going on and what happened. And then they started getting a bit worried, like, what are these things moving around on the ceiling? Let's just casually ignore those things. Find a little bit trinket in the corner, quite useful if shit goes south, which it did.
I'm glad we had that. Otherwise, we would have been dead a lot faster.
That's very true. And then decided, right, so there's a door, with basically, for the love of Christ, get out, don't go in here. You're all going to die. So then they decided to open the very large black box in the centre of the room that basically says on it, for the love of God, don't open me.
Well, it didn't quite say that because we were too stupid to read it. But we did manage to read the other door, which looked worse. So we thought, wow, that door looks worse. We'll try this door. That door was less bad. May have chosen wrongly. Who knows? But
they don't know.
All we've got now is a big baddie looming over the top of us. I think I'm down to about 1 health point on a couple of stats, so I'm a ball hair away from death. And because I'm a ball hair away from death, I can't even shoot my bow properly because I'm now just pointing it at the sky or something. I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah. That's the one thing we haven't said is you don't have hit points. Instead, you have your 4 attributes. And your hit points are linked to those attributes. So if you take damage, if you take physical damage, it's your strength damage. So then you start doing less damage yourself when you're attacking. You're rolling less dice. You've got agility damage and empathy damage and wit damage.
Consequence.
So, and what's also really cool is you can push the dice rolls. So you can do a dice roll, and if you fail, you can roll it again. But you could end up damaging yourself. And again, it's this risk-reward. And half the game is people going, should I re-roll that?
Yeah.
Because if I get another success, we'll probably kill this bugger. But I could die in the process.
It's really
am I going to do it? Am I going to do it?
And I have found, actually, that the party seems to do more damage to themselves using that method than the enemies do to them. It's quite funny.
It's terrifying, because you can damage your equipment as well. So your equipment becomes less effective. So if you start pushing dice rolls and you fail, you damage your bow. Your bow suddenly becomes less damaging, hurtful to the bad guys. And it, tell you what, it is interesting because it does mean some situations spiral. Like, I do feel like we're in a flat spin right now, right? At the moment, because it's like we've lost one engine, right? And then we've banged into our mate and smashed his engine off as well. So now we're both spinning down and falling down the toilet. Our 2 pals that are sitting at the back there are just about to go, well, we're going to shut this door and get this out of here because these idiots are it up. And they'd be legitimately, they should do that. That is exactly what they should do. They should be through that door and out of here. So there might be a way for me to run away. I might take it. I'll be honest.
That's the other thing as well. Fleeing from combat is baked into the rules. There's a skill roll for getting to combat and going, nope, I ain't out of here. Roll the dice.
Bye!
Which my players used in the last comp game quite a bit.
I do feel, we'll have played by the time this goes out, so if he dies, I'm very sorry, Ben. I didn't mean to leave you behind. Because I think I might end up taking that option.
Yeah, for clarity, Ben's character is actually quite broken and can only move by crawling around on his lips at the moment.
And he's engaged with the baddie, which means he can't flee. So, he stopped being engaged with me. I might run away.
It's not looking positive for them. But to be fair, they were warned.
Well, yes, but we were warned in a way which we didn't understand.
Oh, no, I meant by your other party members, the two at the back who said, for the love of Christ, don't open that. You then went and opened it, but, and they're now going, told you.
What do I say? What do I say, Andy? Shy Bairns didn't get the sweeties.
That's very true. The look on his face, though, there's basically this big box covered in wax. And they decided, we're going to open this box. And it started melting, and there was this lump, literally the top half of this sarcophagus was made of solid gold. And the look on Sid's face was, oh my God, I've hit the jackpot. We can just haul this thing out of here. We can live like kings. Until it opened.
Meh.
And his face just dropped.
Look, we'll report back in a few weeks' time as to how badly it went. And I'll be lamenting Kara's demise. But I'll still be happy. And that's the important thing about this game.
Yes. I think it's fair to say that with Forbidden Lands, it took us a little longer to get into it fully than we did with Alien. But now we're in
definitely.
it. We're
but
really
I think there's an important
it.
distinction that we haven't talked about here. Is in Forbidden Lands, we're playing the campaign. In Aliens, we played the cinematics.
That's very true.
Yeah, and that is a big difference. The cinematics are quick, get you going, play it, enjoy it, die, move on. And it's a very different place playing with a campaign. So when we go back to Alien and we start doing a campaign, I think we will find parts of that difficult. It'll be a change of pace for us as well. Yeah,
and I think with Forbidden Lands, the exploration side of it felt clunky to begin with as well.
Yes.
Because of this whole working on a quarter day, and on the quarter day, everyone has to choose what role they're doing, and it took a while for people, as we said earlier, to work out what's their optimum role. But once that's going, travel was much
we
quicker.
punched through several travel days with our session a couple of weeks ago with
quite
pacey.
Easily.
But I think that's learning. That's us getting used to the system. And it puts us in good stead
Yeah.
for Twilight 2000 when it comes out, because I reckon that's going to be just as brutal.
Agreed.
Yes, I think it is, yes.
I think you're right. I mean, it's also worth saying from a DM point of view, just quickly, that Forbidden Lands is also quite easy on the GM in terms of prep, because it is much more like D&D and a few others could take ages and ages and ages to prep with all the maps and goodness knows what else, whereas in Forbidden Lands, half an hour, maybe an hour tops.
It actually says, don't spend more than half an hour prepping, which I think is a little bit keen.
Yeah,
but
I think an hour is probably reasonable.
Yeah.
But because anything can happen, there isn't this plot that drives the story. Because there's no point in. I mean, we can speak from experience. The DM in this lot, it's like herding cats. You can prep as much as you want, but they won't go the way you think. So all your prep's wasted. So there's no point in prepping too much. And because this is so character driven and player driven, you might as well just have a reasonable idea of what's around the area and let's see what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we're getting on with Forbidden Lands. That's 2 for 2 now on Free League.
It is, isn't it? And I've got Coriolis and Vaesen sitting on my shelves as well.
And you guys played Tales from the Loop as well,
yes,
which
we
probably
did.
talk
Yeah,
about in the future.
Yeah.
So we'll play a few games of Tales from the Loop again. Just so we've only played the one session so far, so we'll play that again.
So that's about all we have time for tonight, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. We have been Polyhedra and Collider. If you'd like to give us a review on your podcast platform of choice or share us with your friends, we'd be much appreciated. If you'd like to speak to us, we are on Twitter at PolyhedronC is a collective one, and I can disseminate information to the right person. But individually, I am at Walhothamwadenga.
I am at Sonic H with a 0. John is at John_Cage. And Rory is at Rory J. Summers. He is still alive. We do promise that. And I'm sure if you do tweet him, he'll try to get back to you. We also have a Facebook page and a Board Game Geek Guild, number 2726. And when Steve and I can be bothered and we have time, there are articles, interviews, reviews, and videos. So you actually get to see what we look like in person, you lucky lot, at polyhedroncollider.com.
But for now, and until next time, happy gaming.
Tatty bye.
Cheerio.
Your internet's crapped out, Steve.
Yes, I don't know why.
Chug, chug, chug. It's now, we're basically getting a PowerPoint presentation now. Is this your new fat pipe?
Yeah, the Wi-Fi's crap.
I reckon Amanda's got the microwave on or something.
Maybe she's doing some traffic shaping in the background. All of the World of
All
Warcraft.
of it for World of Warcraft. Big fat pipe for me. Little straw for Steve.
She's got the 22 mil and he's got the 15.
She's on the 20-foot drain pipe, mate.
That's it, yeah. You can drive a truck up.
The best bit is we're recording all this while he can't hear us, so when he gets to the edit, he'll find out what we've been saying about him.
That's true. He's back now, ish.
No. Zoom did that thing which Skype does.
Oh, it lets you carry...
compresses it.
Does
So what I had was... What I basically had is you going... He's having problems. Just going from whale Andy and Sid to chipmunk Andy and Sid.
We could be in a scooter video.